Welcome to A Course in Business Miracles. This is Heather Dominick, creator of BusinessMiracles.com and founder and leader of the highly sensitive entrepreneur movement. Join me today for some genuine practical assistance and a business-altering and life-changing experience, a business miracle. This is A Course in Business Miracles, episode number 3. Readiness. Listen in and find out why the magic ingredient you must have as a highly sensitive entrepreneur is readiness. Well, in order to be able to understand business miracles, we have to understand what is A Course in Miracles. So first of all, A Course in Miracles is a spiritual and psychological teaching and set curriculum. And the course describes itself on page 1 of the preface of the text as such. A Course in Miracles began with the sudden decision of 2 people to join in a common goal. Their names were Helen Schuckman and William Thetford, professors of medical psychology at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York City. They were anything but spiritual. Their relationship with each other was difficult and often strained, and they were concerned with personal and professional acceptance and status. In general, they had considerable investment in the values of the world. Their lives were hardly in accord with anything that the Course advocates. Helen, the one who received the material, describes herself as psychologist, educator, conservative in theory, and atheistic in belief. She says, I was working in a prestigious and highly academic setting, and then something happened that triggered a chain of events I could never have predicted. The head of my department unexpectedly announced that he was tired of the angry and aggressive feelings our attitudes reflected and concluded that there must be another way. As if on cue, I agreed to help him find it. Apparently, this course is the other way. Although their intention was serious, they had great difficulty in starting out on their joint venture. But they had given the Holy Spirit the little willingness that, as the Course itself was to emphasize again and again, is sufficient to enable him to use any situation for his purposes and provide it with his power. I personally have been a student of A Course in Miracles for 30 plus years. My journey with the Course began when I was 14 years old and my mother suddenly died. She was out bicycling in the mountains of the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York where I grew up. She was biking with a friend of hers before mountain biking was mountain biking. She was not wearing a helmet. She fell off her bike and she hit her head. And 2 weeks later, as an only child, my father and I together made the decision to take her off of life support. And everything at that moment in my life changed. It was the beginning of my spiritual journey. It was also the beginning of some very difficult, dark, and tumultuous times. My father, probably out of desperation, introduced me to Marianne Williamson and then therefore the Course when I was a teenager. I remember first diving into the teachings, listening to Marianne read from A Return to Love, her first book, and that reading was on a bootleg tape. So just back in the day when there were audio tapes. And that studying continued throughout my 20s. when I moved to New York City on my own, and I began attending lectures with Marianne at that time. And probably my continuation of study was born from the same energy that my father first introduced the Course and Marianne to me, and that is desperation. I think probably the only way to really describe me at that time is as a lost soul. I couldn't maintain a romantic relationship to save my life. I was searching endlessly for what to do with myself and my career. And I had a very, very unhealthy and tumultuous relationship with money. I got myself into a place where I earned a master's degree from New York University and began a career as a high school drama teacher, which, by the way, everyone that I talked to told me I wasn't going to be able to do. My first job was teaching at a very high-profile, high-paying school district on Long Island. I still didn't have any money. I left that job after 3 years because I was commuting an hour and a half each way, and it was just wearing and tearing on my body and my soul. I took close to a 50% pay cut to take a job teaching at an inner city high school in Manhattan, New York City, where I still live. And to supplement my loss in income, I also took some positions in after-school teaching. 3 days before I started that new job, the man that I was dating at the time told me that he never loved me and he left. 3 days after I started teaching at that job, the World Trade Center, which was under a mile from where I lived and just under 2 miles from where I was now working, was attacked. And with that attack, my city shut down. And with the shutdown of my city came the loss of that after-school work. And with the loss of that after-school work came a shutdown in my finances and a shutdown in my body. I would get up and I would go to work and I would pour my heart and soul into those students because I love them so much, and that's just who I am as a person. But then I would go home and I would pretty much get in bed until I woke up the next morning to get up and do it all again. On weekends, I would get up, I would take the subway from my Greenwich Village apartment to Central Park, and I would walk the entire loop of the park, which is between 6 and 10 miles. I would go home, I'd get a little something to eat, and I would go back to bed. On Sunday, I'd get up and I'd do the exact same thing. And on Monday, it would all begin again. Within 9 months of the World Trade Center being attacked, I had to declare bankruptcy. And the next 3 years were 3 long years of healing and recovery. But through that healing and recovery, as is often the case, came a new opening. And though I loved my students so much, I knew that I was not meant to be confined by the system that is the New York City Department of Education. And so, while still teaching, I went and received a certification in nutrition and wellness. And in 2004, I started my first business. And I knew nothing about being self-employed. I was launched into the whole new world of marketing and selling and websites and HTML and email, and I hadn't even had a computer before I began this venture. And I built that business up to full capacity within 9 months' time out of pure tenacity and perseverance. And though I had learned so much about marketing and selling, primarily all self-taught, I really felt like there was something missing. I felt like I could only go so far in my business. And that's when I really began bringing my spiritual practice into my business practice. And that launched me into the second phase of my business because other wellness practitioners wanted to know what I was doing to be able to be in business full time, and eventually started asking me if I would coach them. And I very shyly at first started sharing about the spiritual principles that I was applying to my marketing and to my selling and to my overall day-to-day business practices. And then that launched me from having this successful practice into having a thriving, successful business and company. But then flash forward to 2011, and though I had brought my business across the $1 million mark, I found that I was absolutely exhausted. And I just really felt like I couldn't continue in the way that I had been going. I felt like I had lost my spiritual self. I had disconnected my spiritual self from my business self. The mentor that I was working with at that time was all about really more, and income marks really meant everything. And I felt very disillusioned about the coaching industry. I questioned my part in it. And at that point, I disconnected from everything except for the love that I continued to pour into my clients. And it was, again, a very dark night of the soul. It was probably the third most difficult time of my life. First being the death of my mother, second being 9/11. And then here I was again. And as part of that healing and that recovery, I found myself once again back with my original teacher, Marianne Williamson, in a small spiritual retreat of just 25 people with Marianne and Robert Thurman in the depths of the Catskill Mountains in New York State. And there's a lot that came out of that, and you can read more about that as part of my full story, as part of on my full website, businessmiracles.com. But one of the really powerful teachings that came out of that was this concept of miracle readiness. And I want you to write that down. Before I go into sharing more about what I mean by miracle readiness, I first want to just emphasize some of the definitions from A Course in Miracles that you're going to hear me speak to. And I invite you to write these down. So the first definition is God. And according to the Course, that is higher power. It is that force that is much bigger, much more powerful than each of us as individuals. The second definition is Holy Spirit. And according to the Course, this is our internal mind connection to that higher power. And the third definition, Jesus. And according to the Course, this is the physical representation of God. It's a demonstration that this is you. That as Jesus is able to embody that higher power, you, as a mirror of Jesus, are also able to embody that higher power. And the next definition is atonement. So this, according to the Course, is forgiveness. It is also, with the phrase that Marianne has so beautifully made mainstream and popular, it is the return to love. It is the purity that we all naturally are. And then also, according to the Course, the next definition, ego or ego mind. And this is the fear-based mind that does reside within each of us. Now, my high business miracle recommendation is that you adapt this language as best works for you. So again, you might hear me reference, but please don't get locked down or boxed in by language or linguistics. What's most important is the meaning and the teachings and the concepts behind the words. So back to miracle readiness. So why is this important? Well, we go back to page 1 of the preface of A Course in Miracles, and that between Helen and Bill, they were tired of the anger and the aggression and the difficulty within their attitudes. And they agreed together that there must be another way. And I invite you to write that phrase down. There must be another way. And that through their agreement, they had given the Holy Spirit the little willingness. And I want you to write that phrase down too. Little willingness. That, as the Course emphasizes again and again, is sufficient. Write that word down and underline it. Is sufficient to enable Him, God, universe, Buddha, Allah, again, whatever language works for you, to use any situation, that would include your business, for His purpose and provide it with His power. So, readiness for business miracle, it doesn't require for you to be enlightened. It doesn't require for you to have a perfect website. It doesn't require for you to be, mastering all of the emails or other internet marketing tools and aspects that you see other people out there supposedly mastering. No, simply a little willingness. And how do I know that you are miracle ready? Well, I know that because you have been attracted to the series. And because you are here, that says that you are ready. You are ready to experience miracles in your business and in your life. And I want you to write that down. And now you might say to me, but Heather, how could I be ready to experience miracles when look, I don't have the number of clients that I want. I don't have the income that I want. My team doesn't operate the way that I need them to, or I can't even conceive of having a team. I don't know where to begin. I find myself confused. Why? Why is all this happening if supposedly I'm miracle ready? Well, there's two things that I have to share with you. The first is that miracles are all around us all the time. And all it requires is, again, a little willingness to open to another way, to open to see something differently, to experience a shift in perception. And two, the opposite of readiness is resistance. So we may say that we want this, that, and the other in our business. But often what I have found is beneath what we say we want, what we say we desire, beneath is a fear of what that will actually mean, what that will actually require of us, what we will have to change. And all the ego mind needs is just a sliver of fear to feed on. So how do you know that you're missing miracles? You're experiencing resistance. And how do we get out of that? How do we get out of this resistance? All you need to do is ask, and write that down. ASK. To simply ask, dear God, dear universe, dear Allah, dear Buddha, dear Goddess, please send me a miracle. Please help me to see things differently. Please send me a business miracle. Please help me to see this situation in my business differently. According to the principle of miracles in A Course in Miracles, principle of miracles number 1 is that there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. And how do we activate this? The very best thing that you can do is to commit. Commit to the series. Again, you have been brought here on purpose. And I will tell you, I've been doing this work long enough to know that you will come up with every reason of why you cannot attend these trainings. Your ego mind will show you everything and anything. The computer will disconnect, the phone line will go out, the dog will need to be walked, the baby will be crying, you name it. But if you are really ready, and I know that you are, to experience business miracles, then you commit. You do whatever you need to do to make this time, our time together, a priority. And as you do, I promise you, you will not be the same person on the other side. Your business will not be the same business on the other side. No matter what phase of business building you're at, if you just have an idea, if you have just started out, or if you're looking to take your business to the next level. So just a recap before we wrap, little willingness is all that's needed. You are miracle ready. You've been brought to the series on purpose. The opposite of readiness is resistance. The way out of resistance is to ask. Commit to the series. Awesome.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Course in Business Miracles. If you're ready to learn how to use your highly sensitive abilities to support you in being purposeful, profitable, and empowered rather than scattered, poor, and undervalued, take my free self-quiz to find out if you are indeed a highly sensitive entrepreneur. And if you are, along with your quiz results, you'll receive my free HSE Success Guide, which will teach you how to have your highly sensitive abilities working for you to create the results you desire in your business. Take the quiz and receive your free success guide now at www.hsequiz.com.